Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope you're off to a great start on this Tuesday. Lucas, remember when I told you that the Jets as a fan base probably felt the best of any of the teams in the AFC East into Monday Night Football?
Said vibes are high.
Well, not so fast, my friends, in true Lee Corso fashion. In the midst of one of the worst offensive seasons in franchise history, a franchise history that is plagued with bad offensive football, the Jets, 27-6. How much of that game did you watch last night? At least you could kind of have like a palate cleanser with Tennessee, just wiping the floor with Tennessee Tech last night, covering the 32.5. Slay made me very happy by greeting me this morning on the first day of Indiana basketball by saying, you don't have to worry about Indiana choking in the Big Ten. Michigan State already did it for you.
Who did Michigan State lose to?
James Madison.
And who did Indiana lose to?
Nobody yet. Stay tuned. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. 615-737-1045 is the number. The F&M Bank chat also at your disposal. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. How much of that bad football did you watch last night?
A little bit of the first half, strictly on the Manning cast. Jordan on the F&M Bank chat says, Manning cast makes bad football watchable. I caught Peyton and Eli's chat with Trevor Lawrence. I missed the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You missed your boy.
I know. I was very upset about that. I actually do need to go back and watch it.
They started the interview. You saw, of course, the clip going around on the internet of him and the donkey. You've seen this in the Manning cast? You have no idea what I'm talking about?
No.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
I know that Arnold owns donkeys because I watched the Netflix docuseries on him.
One of the donkeys was on the Manning cast with him.
Fantastic.
Like, when they started the interview, the donkey is eating a treat out of Arnold's hand, so there's a whole donkey's head in the frame, basically in Arnold's, like, right bicep as he's feeding this donkey, trying to distract us from how bad Zach Wilson is at offensive football. Although, honestly, even when he was making plays, that C.J. Uzomah drop touchdown. Did you see this? You probably weren't watching late enough in the game. I would never accuse a professional athlete of being unathletic, but it is the most unathletic play I think I've seen a professional athlete make, at least this calendar year. I don't want to be recency bias and say it's the most unathletic thing I've ever seen a professional athlete do. But just like they couldn't do anything right. They could not do anything right. When Zach Wilson was accurate, they dropped passes. When they were wide open, Zach Wilson was inaccurate. The Chargers defense, who has not been good all year long. It was like the reverse of a good matchup. Jets offense versus Chargers defense going in. So you thought, okay, maybe you'll see some weird stuff. No, just bad football.
Chargers were not good either on offense.
No.
The Jets outgained the Chargers by nearly 100 yards.
Which is crazy to think about.
It was 270 to 191.
I think the thing that made the Jets worse is, did you see their third down percentage? 3 of 17.
Yeah, Chargers were 7 of 16.
That's a tough brand of football to watch. 8 sacks allowed by the Jets offensive line. They keep showing Aaron Rodgers out there doing insane things like hitting 3-step drops in pregame warmups and throwing 55-yard passes. Sir, for what? Why do you want to play behind that offensive line? They're a nightmare.
Xavier Newman is their center.
That's right. That's a starting offensive lineman.
Well, I did see the graphic pop up, and I said, wait, that Xavier Newman?
That's right.
Is the center for the Jets, Jets?
Yep. Saffold is there on the practice squad like they are doing everything they can to keep that ship afloat.
The guy who was benched by this offensive line?
That's right.
That was pulled from this group? Said, no, he's not good enough for this offensive line.
I mean, real quick, we found out he wasn't good enough for this offensive line.
5 minutes.
Think about that.
He played guard, right? He was pulled.
He was a guard, and
did he play for Skoronski? Was that what it was? I think, yeah, because Radens came in for him at left guard, I believe.
That's right.
It lasted
like it seems so long ago. As we reach now the official halfway point of the season, congratulations to all of you. I don't know how well you're surviving out there, depending on which NFL fan base you are a member of, but it is officially the halfway point of the NFL season. And unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles, nobody really seems to be happy. at least by my assessment. People are complaining about the Chiefs' offense, even though they're 7-2 and at the top of the AFC. Nobody's happy, basically, with their football team at the halfway point. But yes, Xavier Newman-Johnson, who was very, very quickly pulled on a bad offensive line here in Tennessee, is now a starting member of the New York Jets offensive line group. Aaron Rodgers has a death wish. Truly. That he would consider, like, that he's out there walking around without crutches. How long removed? It's like 46 days removed, maybe a little more than that from the Achilles surgery. And he's out there hitting 3-step drops. I have no idea what he's doing to get out there. I mean, I've read about the things that he said that he's doing to get back out there, and it all sounds very, something like whatever he was on the dais to speak about at the hallucinogenics convention or whatever it was. I don't want to speak recklessly. But Aaron Rodgers, to come back and play behind that offensive line at almost 40 off a bum Achilles with less mobility than he's ever had at any other point in his life, I don't understand. I don't understand. They're 500 right now. They're still second place in the AFC East, which is crazy. And they have a game coming up against the Bills in Buffalo, not too far from now, that is going to be very, very important to that particular team's trajectory.
They are at the revitalized Raiders, at the Bills, home against the Dolphins.
Wait, the Jets? When is that Jets-Raiders game?
That is coming up this Sunday. That is Sunday Night Football.
Oh, my God.
This Sunday.
Why? Are we
you
not?
know why.
Well, yeah, I know why. I just wish that we could get to the point where we'd flex these things already. I don't want to watch any more Jets football. Please, God, make it stop.
Why can't we do that? Why can't we start flexing after the midway point? Because this happens every year. Every year.
So bad.
We have at least a couple teams that we're really excited about in the offseason that end up being dreadful, and we get slapped on prime time on it feels like a bi-weekly basis. Last year it was the Broncos. This year it's the Giants and the Jets.
Well, and Amazon, you saw, is like renegotiating their deal over how bad their draws were last year because they got the Broncos a whole bunch. They said, no, not for $78 million and change a year. No, thank you, sir.
I'm pretty sure Amazon's matchup coming up this weekend's going to be a stinker.
Oh,
Isn't it Panthers-Bears?
That's right.
3 wins between the two of them.
Oh, my God. There's so much bad football out there. So, in the midst of all of this, Titans at the bottom of their division, not dead yet. Not dead yet. I don't know what it's going to take to kill them, but they're not dead to this point. And, of course, the question that looms over all of this, at least heading into Week 10 of the NFL season, is who is going to be your quarterback, Mike Vrabel? Now, Mike is not going to speak. We thought that the press conference might be during the middle of the radio show, as it typically is. On their first day back at work, it's not. It's at 1 o'clock today. So you'll get to listen to Mike Vrabel's press conference during Blaine and Mickey today. We will, of course, talk about all the different things that this team has to correct. I saw Mike Herndon pose a pretty interesting question about the 4 young quarterbacks in the AFC South and whomst you'd rather have moving forward, given a small sample size for the Titans quarterback, but pretty decent look at the other 3 players in the division. 615-737-1045 is the number. Do we have anything cool to do today? We have the soccer game tonight. Are you excited?
I am. I'm very excited. Excited for the environment, excited for what is on the line, and excited for the matchup. Nashville and Orlando. No love lost between the two.
Lucas is on the call for that. We gave away a couple of family 4-packs yesterday. Tonight at Geodis Park, the first playoff game at the new stadium for Nashville SC. I know people are very, very excited about it. And as I said, you can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up next, we are going to get into a couple of different discussions about college football, but some news breaking later in the evening last night about this Jim Harbaugh sign-stealing Michigan story and the legal implications for all 3 parties involved. It's pretty interesting. You're going to want to hear that coming up next. Welcome back to the show. So we have been not negligent, I would say, but we've been a little late to the party on one of the bigger scandals in the college football world. Maybe it's just because Lucas was here for a week. I was out for a week. Then when I got back, Lucas was out, and all of this has happened basically in that timeline. So if you've been paying attention to what's happening with one of the best college football programs in the country, Michigan, there has been a pretty substantial scandal. And last night, about 5:30 in the evening, Yahoo Sports broke the news that the NCAA has revealed its findings in the I think Connor Stallions cut our wires, Lucas.
That is what happened.
That's what Ricky has suggested in the FNM Bank chat. That was the emergency alert service. Always in the middle of when I'm making a very important point. Tighten up, Tony says, deep state Harbaugh. That's right.
We're being censored by Michigan.
So, the NCAA, let's see if it happens again. We tried it once, has revealed its findings in the Michigan sign stealing investigation to the Big Ten Conference. And the conference is continuing to consider a multi-game suspension of Jim Harbaugh as the school prepares for legal action. Now, all of this is being reported by Yahoo Sports. The findings are detailed and well worked through by Ross Dellinger and Dan Wetzel, who have the piece up at sports.yahoo.com. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti's pursuit of potential penalties against Harbaugh is now the latest chapter in an ongoing saga that has gripped the college football world, they write. Michigan 9-0, and the number 3 team in the college football playoff rankings travels to Penn State on Saturday for a top 10 meeting in what will be, by far, the Wolverines' toughest test of the year. Well, that's on the field. Off the field, they got this hovering over it. Apparently, Ward Manuel, their AD, is skipping out on his college football playoff committee duties this weekend as the school gets ready to prepare a legal defense and he can focus on the school's investigation. Now, this all was reported out first, again, by Yahoo Sports, who always does really good work in the world of college football. Ross Dellinger, in particular, has always been one of the best to do it. October 19th, Yahoo had the report about an elaborate multi-year endeavor to scout and record opponents' play call signals. So this is the Connor Stallions thing that we're alluding to. He is at the center of the scheme. He has a manifesto with how to bring Michigan back to greatness. It all seems a little unhinged, but, there's no question that he was doing it with the efforts to improve the Michigan football program. And by accounts, when you look at the different ways that this thing has had a ripple effect, it seems to have I don't want to say that it's directly affected their winning percentage, but they're winning damn near 90% of their games at Michigan since all of this, over the timeline that this has taken place, for people going back through and documenting these things. Now, that may be as far-fetched as Tennessee fans thinking that information was shared between Michigan and South Carolina was preying on their downfall with the wristband, the alleged wristband situation, all these kind of things that are spiraling out of this. But this is Tony Petitti's 8th month as the commissioner of the Big Ten, and he is embroiled in one of the biggest scandals. I mean, what is this akin to? Like the level of problems that this is going to cause for a member institution of a Power 5 conference by their own wrongdoing or by a member of their staff's own wrongdoing. I can't think of anything, in the last couple of years that rises to this. Obviously, sign stealing is not the end of the world, but it does directly impact the competitive advantage. And that's the thing that, in all of this is supposed to be held sacred, if for no other reason than gambling's.
Yeah, there's not really any documented cheating scandals like this in college athletics. Like, the closest thing I can think of is the Astros.
Or like the Cardinals. Remember when the Cardinals were hacking databases and things like that? They were Russian botting it out here. So cheating scandal, probably the Astros and the trash can lids and how it was that they were alleged to have won a World Series and not caring after the fact, basically. Stallions is believed to have used as many as 65 associates. That's the even crazier part. Who are these peons that
Just
are
a massive web,
a web of lies
of Michigan lackeys.
65 associates to scout games. And again, it's not illegal to sign steal, but it is illegal to scout a future opponent's game, as well as using recording devices to document signals. There are pictures of him on this Central Michigan sideline with Ray-Bans that have a recording device in them. Quantifiably so. It really reads like kind of a football spy novel, a little bit. And so now, in the middle of all of this, the school was given a period of several days in which to mount a response to the conference before penalties come down. The NCAA's findings, it's important to note, do not connect the in-person scouting and recording of opponents' sidelines to Jim Harbaugh. And that was the biggest part of the findings to come out yesterday evening. So, while he has been absolved of the in-person scouting and recording, the evidence essential to a potential lawsuit from the school and coach against the league is kind of what they're waiting on here to decide whether they're going to come down with a suspension and whether the school and coach need to pursue legal action as a result. This all just sounds super messy. Super messy. And, I mean, is there anything, because I couldn't find this in the report, is there anything to keep them from enforcing a suspension this season?
Would be his second of the season.
I mean, is there anything to keep them from doing that? Like a second suspension, but for a different infraction. This is not like, you've already been tried once for a crime. You can't be tried again for it or whatever the rule is. The impending kind of news drop on all of this is, of course, in the middle of a season where Michigan has as good a chance at a national championship as any in the last couple of years. And apparently in meetings with Michigan officials on Friday, the Big Ten commissioner is believed to have proposed a multi-game suspension for Harbaugh, something that school officials, including President Santa Ono, pushed back against. In a letter to the Big Ten commissioner publicized over the weekend, Ono expressed his desire for the conference to wait until the NCAA completes its investigation before levying any penalties. Yes, give me my championship, give me the money that we can make as an institution, and then you can suspend my coach if he's done something wrong. Just wait a minute.
Now, Petitti is facing pressure from every other Big Ten institution.
Sure.
So how he weighs that is going to be interesting because, sure, wait until the NCAA investigation is over, so we'll talk to you in 2028.
The quote in here from Greg Sankey is interesting. Did you make it that far in the article? Where, and this is a line from it, again, sports.yahoo.com with the news on the latest in the Michigan sign stealing investigation. The controversy has drawn the attention of many across the country and has sparked calls for wireless communication devices in college football. Asked about the situation facing Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey noted his own school's problems in the past and also said, "I don't wish that on anyone." Shocking that Greg Sankey would have had presided over something like this before with some of the most competitive college football institutions in the country.
This would all be solved by having communication devices and helmets the way they have it in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I understand the contention that not every college football program can afford that. And
it's a lot. like it's a lot to ask. It's not like there's you don't have a revenue sharing situation across conferences to make up for some of the less thans, right? Just it's not feasible when you have that many member institutions. How many different Division I college football programs? 130 something, almost 40 something, I think. It's not reasonable to expect that, James Madison, who just upset Michigan State last night in college basketball, has the same financial resources that Michigan State does. So the scrutiny, the scrutiny is on Michigan, of course, but it's also on the Big Ten commissioner, because this is not a small decision that he has to make. Michigan is a very valuable property for the Big Ten. And to get embroiled in a lawsuit with one of your most important member institutions at a time where all of this stuff is all of the ecosystems around conferences in college sports just seem super fragile right now. And I know there are television contracts that are locking these things into place, especially in the Big Ten for the foreseeable future, but I don't know. I don't envy him. I don't envy him at all. I don't know what the right decision is here. I mean, I'm inclined to say that it makes more sense to let the width and breadth of an investigation play out before making any kind of punishments. That does make the most sense to me, even though I understand that Michigan's advocating on that as much, for financial benefit as anything else.
It's going to be interesting to watch these last 3 games on how Michigan kind of responds to all of this.
What happens if they lose?
It was business as usual over the weekend. They just sort of dispatched Purdue 41-13, and they've done that all season. They've taken care of business with a laughably weak schedule to this point. But they're at Penn State this weekend. 11 a.m., big noon kickoff, top 10 matchup. At Penn State, at Maryland, home against Ohio State to close out the regular season. Next 3 games on the schedule for Michigan. So it's just going to be fun to watch Michigan adopt this us against the world mentality.
It's a great coach to have do it. He's already unhinged up there.
I love when programs do the us against the world thing when they are very much the guilty party. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want us to win. Like, no, you cheated. You're cheaters.
You're right. I don't want you to win.
No.
You cheated. That is correct.
The entire college football world is going to be pulling for Penn State on Saturday.
Are we? I don't know. I mean, Are people having a harsh reaction? I don't get that sense anyway. Maybe I'm a little more removed from it than you are, but I don't get a sense that overwhelmingly people are now rooting against Michigan, any more so than they were. Do you? At least that's not been the tone around this stuff. I don't, we haven't got many calls that are from Vols fans that are furthering said conspiracy theories about how far exactly we know that the Michigan sign-stealing scandal actually spread, even though SEC member institutions were affected, according to the reporting. Affected, like this is some kind of pandemic situation. I don't get the sense that people are actively rooting harder against Michigan than they already were. I feel like Michigan is an easy institution. Harbaugh is an easy person, easy figure to root against.
Right. So would this not just amplify that? Michigan is already one of the, would you say, 5 most hated college football programs across the country, just generally?
That's a good question. Who's on that list?
Alabama is definitely on that list. I think Ohio State
has to be
on that list. And these things are obviously cyclical, but as far as just
Notre Dame,
one of those teams, sure, Notre Dame, Michigan is one of those teams.
Yeah.
So when swirled in cheating allegations, I think people will be hoping Penn State knocks them off on Saturday.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get involved. There's also this report from Ross Dellinger on yesterday, as a matter of fact. Ohio State's Ryan Day has no known ties to the Michigan sign-stealing probe, which was something that was also under investigation. Because can you imagine if Michigan and Ohio State were caught up in the middle of all this? They notified the Big Ten on Monday that there were no known connections between Ohio State's coach Ryan Day and the investigation, or his family. Apparently, they're investigating family members too. I want to know what do you think these interrogations look like, or what do you think these investigations look like? I'm dying to know. Conference investigation into Michigan. Senior officials at both the association and conference told Yahoo Sports. The NCAA is in the middle. This is the third week of the investigation into the Michigan Wolverines for this elaborate multi-year on-site sign-stealing scheme. Say that 5 times fast. It is a fun weekend in college football beyond the scandal. I mean, Penn State, Michigan is obviously going to be a game to watch. The Georgia-Missouri game, I mean, that went as expected this past weekend. Georgia just kind of grinds its way to victory again and finding different ways to win. After watching Missouri, I don't know how much of that game you watched this weekend, given that you were,
most of it,
wandering around in the streets of Atlanta doing God knows what.
Watching football.
Even when you go out of town?
Oh, yeah. Just wherever we are. Like that is,
was that the purpose? I didn't know the purpose of the trip.
There was a wedding on Friday that I missed. A close friend of mine got married on Friday night in Atlanta.
What do you mean you missed?
I was working. I was doing high school football on my TV 30. But I drove down Saturday morning to spend the weekend with everybody, including the bride and groom. And, yeah, we're traversing around Atlanta, but the general rule wherever we go is that there needs to be football on. So, yes, I caught the majority of Georgia, Missouri.
So, after watching Missouri, do you feel any differently about Tennessee? I mean, now that Georgia has won head-to-head against Missouri, Tennessee in the SEC East remains the only greatest threat left on their schedule. But do you expect Missouri, who Tennessee plays this weekend, or do you expect rather Tennessee, who Missouri plays this weekend, to look any more competitive against Georgia, with that as the sample size?
Well, Joe Milton is playing his best football. I think we talked about it after the Texas A&M game. It kind of felt like at that point, which was his worst performance of the season, he was starting to regress a little bit. The numbers, the QB ratings were dropping week to week, and you look at that and you say, okay, well, that's not supposed to happen. And he's kind of turned and gone back in a positive direction since then. In the last 3 games, Joe Milton's completing just south of 80% of his passes. He's being efficient. He's in a rhythm. He's running the football. And I thought, we talked about it, the Kentucky game arguably was Joe Milton's best performance as Tennessee's starting quarterback. Just feel for the game, efficiency, doing what it takes to win, command of the offense, all of those things. Accuracy, not putting the ball in a bad spot. So I think that coincides well with going into this Missouri game that, well, can Tennessee win a shootout against Missouri is my big question.
Which is a crazy question to pose after the year that they had last year, but that's very much not this Tennessee team. And I think a fair one. Georgia plays Ole Miss this weekend, by the way, at home for what it's worth.
Yep.
There's a couple of, okay, Washington and Utah is a good game. Florida State, Miami is always going to have some rivalry associated with it, although Miami, I mean, what do I do with the Hurricanes? There's Tyler Van Dyke looks not good this year. That was the thing that I thought that they could bank on the most as they continue to add talent around there. Anyway, we don't have to do a whole Miami Hurricane segment. But of all the different games on the schedule this coming weekend, like Kentucky and Alabama, I don't expect to be particularly close at mighty Kroger Field. We talked about Michigan and Penn State, but Tennessee at Missouri, that would be a quality road win for a team that hasn't done much winning has hardly done any winning on the road this year.
Yeah, the only way that game has any impact on the SEC East is if Georgia were to lose to Ole Miss at home.
Right.
And we have yet to see that from Lane Kiffin in his Ole Miss era, winning those type of big games. I mean, what's Lane Kiffin's signature win at Ole Miss? I guess LSU, beating LSU at home earlier this year and putting up, 55 points against an LSU defense that has just been dreadful
at the very start of the season.
Yeah, that's a quality win. That's a really good win.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this is an Ole Miss team that put up 10 points at Alabama. So that's the only way that Tennessee, Missouri has any impact on the SEC East race because, of course, if Georgia were to fall to Ole Miss, suddenly Tennessee would control its own destiny if they were to beat Missouri and then find a way to beat Georgia at home. That all seems very unlikely. Right now, it's about, okay, can you win 9 or more games this year? And I think there's a huge difference between 9-3 and 8-4 for Tennessee and the momentum it's trying to create this season. So this is a huge game. It's a huge game for this season. We talked about the next 2 weeks. It's kind of turned into a 2-game season for the Vols. Moving forward, next 2 weeks decide if you're going to be 8-4 or 9-3, or best case scenario is you're knocking off Georgia and you're going 10-2 and winning out. So this does feel like a big swing in one way or another for Tennessee. 8-4, yeah, acceptable. 9-3, you feel a lot better about where the program's at heading into the bowl game. Still the potential for a 10-win season and a potential springboard for 2024 with Nico Iamaleava and co. So it's a big game for both programs. Missouri, you got to hat tip Eli Drinkwitz, man. That guy.
It's a good coaching staff. Like a lot of people who you talk to just generally about, hey, what's Missouri doing this year? Because the talent, it's not like they're an overwhelmingly talented team. But the coaching staff is very well regarded, and I think you've seen that play itself out in a couple of different games. Even in the 2 losses that they've had, they've found ways to stay competitive, if for no other reason. I feel like the scheme is keeping them in it. And
Eli Drinkwitz deserves a lot of credit for stepping away from play calling duties on offense and bringing someone in. He brings in Kirby Moore, Fresno State offensive coordinator, a year ago, and it's worked out really, really well. Mm-hmm. Brady Cook in this offense has blossomed. Luther Burden's one of the best wide receivers in the country. And they're fun. They're fun to watch. A lot of weapons on the outside. Georgia did a really nice job of eliminating Luther Burden from the game, especially in the second half. But that is priority number one when you're facing this Mizzou offense and especially this Mizzou passing attack. But credit where it's due for Eli Drinkwitz, who's taken a lot of criticism over the last couple of years of a lot of bark, not a lot of bite, trying to be that coach that every time he steps to the podium, he's going to say something funny and take shots at other programs. And okay, but you got to accomplish more than 6-6 to be that guy. And he's doing that right now for Missouri. There seems to be an ascension with that program. That's a credit to him.
The Vols leading rusher, Jalen Wright, got 110 carries, 826 yards, 3 touchdowns. Do you know what Missouri's leading rusher, what's Schrader's first name?
Is it I was going to say Garrett Schrader. That's the former Missouri quarterback.
It starts with a C either way.
Cody
Schrader. All right. 162 carries, 919 yards to 10 touchdowns. Incredibly productive this year. Do you know who the Vols' leading receiver is this year, Lucas?
Oh, Tennessee's lead receiver this year. That is a fascinating question. It's not Brew McCoy. Is it Squirrel?
Yep.
Okay.
46 receptions, 557 yards, 2 touchdowns. Do you know what that looks like against Luther Burden's production?
Oh, Burden is having himself a year.
64 catches, 958 yards, 7 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah, Burden's having himself a year. He's a 5-star prospect. I mean, that's
a really talented player.
Yeah, that's a guy that every program in the country wanted. He decided to stay home, and it's paying off for him right now. He's having a huge year. Missouri's offense is fun to watch, and it's going to be a good game on Saturday in Columbia.
What in sports made you say, oh no, this weekend? We'll do it next. Well, anytime there's football, there's always things that'll make you gasp, things will make you pearl clutch a little bit from time to time, things that'll make you laugh, sometimes not always for good reasons. That is typically the subject of the thing in sports that made us say, oh no, this week.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, no.
Oh yeah!
Lucas, you ever seen Animal House?
Oh, yeah.
It's a 45-year-old movie. I don't do well with pop culture references. That's one that I love. It's an incredible movie, comedy classic. It's probably what you would regard as a generational film.
Oh, yeah.
I think it transcends pretty well. So, the Dolphins and Chiefs are playing in Germany this past weekend, and ESPN NFL reporter Jeff Darlington was on the scene reporting. Now, the reason that I bring up Animal House is because Jeff Darlington made an Animal House reference on the internet that absolutely nobody got. Because these two teams were looked at as, Super Bowl contenders. Dolphins start off pretty rough. They're down 21-0 at half. And they end up coming back. But before that, while the Dolphins looked to be down tremendous, Darlington, whilst in Germany, made the reference to Animal House. A mere history lesson here in Germany should provide the Dolphins all the hope they need in the second half. After all, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Oh, no.
It's a great quote. It's a great quote.
Jeff.
But it doesn't translate. Not on Twitter.
There were not a lot of happy German football fans who found Jeff Darlington's Twitter. Let me tell you. Because the German people are very sensitive about said situation. And that Jeff Darlington is making Animal House jokes without any context. This is why you can't, jokes, sometimes you can get a good joke off in print, but it's very hard to do. This is an example because the joke is funny. And I'm sure Jeff Darlington, if he said it in the same tones from Animal House, you would probably get that it's an Animal House reference. But standalone as a tweet from a sideline in Germany. After all, was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Dear God.
You got to post the clip from the movie.
Ugh.
Right? Because that's a great line drop.
It's great.
It's a fantastic line from John Belushi. That's fantastic from Darlington, but yeah, hard to come across on just Twitter text. That's so funny. That is fantastic.
It is absolutely incredible. Anyway.
So I saw this floating around after the Texas Rangers won the World Series for the first time in franchise history. A Dallas radio station broadcasting live from the team's parade had Jerry Jones on and asked Jerry Jones about winning a championship.
What's your message to all the people that are walking around this parade today, taking in all this stuff that's going on, all the celebration for this team? What do you want to say to all these fans out here?
Sport. The rough times that you have with sport, everybody has it. Everybody, you can't really play unless you have some hard times. But it is the absolute glory hole to have that elusive win to be the champion.
The absolute what, Jerry?
But it is the absolute glory hole.
It's the host just in the background. Just can we isolate the laugh? Is there any way the scared laugh of the radio show host who's scared to point out to Jerry Jones that he's just said glory hole on local terrestrial radio?
Is this a case of 81-year-old Jerry Jones thinking glory hole maybe means something different? Maybe it meant something different when Jerry was in his 20s than it does today. Or are we doing some investigative journalism here on how Robert Walsh came to be the son of Jerry Jones?
Might be my daddy, y'all.
I don't know. But Jerry Jones saying the words glory hole on FM radio is absolutely what made me say...
God, that's a strong. We came in with strong hands this week. Really, really strong oh no's this week. God, Jerry. That just does it even matter? Like, at what age is there ever an age that you get to that you're just allowed to say whatever you want? Because I feel like Jerry Jones at 81 is kind of teetering. Now, of course, some of these things can be deeply problematic, especially those those of you who have gone through this with maybe grandparents or great-grandparents where, oh no, grandma's got a little racism to her. That's not something that I expected. So I'm not saying that 81 years old is something, that you could say anything that you like. But I feel like Jerry Jones, if he wants to say glory hole on the radio, let him say glory hole. It's the most that I ever thought I'd say it in a segment of FM radio. Yet here we are. Thank you, Jerry.
What a weird way to describe winning a championship. Potentially the weirdest way.
Well, I don't know, depending on what have you read on those Cowboys championship teams? I don't think that you could rule out anything based on what my, understanding is just from the reporting around those Cowboys championship teams. Oh no, indeed. 615-737-1045 is the number. Are the Titans bringing in wide receiver help? ? Well, maybe when Jerry Jones gets done with them. We'll talk about it next.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Week 9 in the NFL ended with the LA Chargers routing the New York Jets 27-6 on Monday Night Football. Both teams end the week at 4-4. Tennessee basketball tipped off the season with an 80-42 win over Tennessee Tech on Monday night. Dalton Knecht led the 9th-ranked Vols in scoring with 17 points. Tennessee shot 46% from the floor, hitting 12 of 30 three-point attempts. The Vols will travel to Wisconsin on Friday night. The Tennessee Titans coming off the mini bye, looking ahead to Sunday's matchup in Tampa Bay. News from Tom Pelissero just minutes ago, the Titans reportedly are waiving defensive lineman Naquan Jones. Yesterday, Paul Kaharski reported that offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere will have shoulder surgery following an injury in Pittsburgh Thursday night, and that he could miss the remainder of the season. Mike Vrabel will meet with the media coming up at 1 p.m. You can hear that live right here on The Zone at the start of Blaine and Mickey. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour on this Tuesday. Welcome in. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Hope you are having a great start to your day, heading into your afternoon. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to react to anything Titans, Vols, SEC, NFL related. Terrible Monday Night Football game last night. We are happy to be through with Week 9, I think, collectively as a group. On to Week 10, Titans on the road again, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the next opponent. Now, speaking of the NFC, there's a couple of different news items. Somebody asked me earlier if we're going to talk about Martavis Bryant. I mean, maybe. We had it in there as a note in the show rundown today, but the reporting on that was that a 31-year-old who's been out of the league for a couple of years and had been suspended from the NFL for a period of time due to several marijuana-related infractions in Martavis Bryant. Again, he's only 31, but that's as old as DeAndre Hopkins is, for what it's worth. Apparently, he's making an NFL comeback. He's got to work out with the Cowboys, and if that doesn't work out, he doesn't get a contract there, he's coming to Tennessee for a visit. That's about the extent of the interest around Martavis Bryant. I think that's a practice squad acquisition at best, and apparently that's only if he gets by the Cowboys, who also could use a little bit of wide receiver help. So, non-story until it is. You heard an actual news update from Lucas. Naquan Jones, who's playing about 20% of the snaps, defensive snaps, for this Titans defense right now, he was waived. We will see what transactions correspond with that, because being on the active roster, one would think that is going to be indicative of a different move that's going to be made. NPF, not on injured reserve after we left the radio show yesterday. No transaction yet with Nicholas Petit-Frere, who is dealing reportedly with shoulder surgery and will miss a period of time. So we'll keep you updated with the latest on that. Mike Vrabel speaks at 1 o'clock, as you heard. But there was something that Lucas brought up to me that I hadn't thought to talk about this week. Kevin Byard has played now 2 games for the Philadelphia Eagles and just made his home debut against the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't see much of Cowboys-Eagles this week, other than it looked like it was close for a period of time, and then Philadelphia pulled away, as they tend to do. But apparently, Kevin Byard has had a rough go, is getting his first real treatment of Philadelphia sports fandom, and is being received not overwhelmingly well. The mayor of Murfreesboro doesn't matter to the state of Pennsylvania. And in this game against the Dallas Cowboys, surrendered 3 targets, 3 receptions, 71 yards, and had as bad a penalty day as I can remember Kevin Byard having individually. Lucas, you said you watched this game and had to do a double take when they called a personal foul on Kevin Byard.
Yeah, there was a critical 4th down late, either in or near the red zone, for the Cowboys, and they're pushing for it. Obviously, it's a one-possession game. It's in the fourth quarter, and there's kind of a scuffle at the end of a play where Byard kind of gets dragged off the pile by Jake Ferguson, the Cowboys tight end, and then Byard gets up and two-handed shoves Ferguson back, and boom, flag immediately, and it's a pivotal first down for the Cowboys and a 15-yard penalty, personal foul on Byard. And I was kind of stunned. I did a double take. I was like, that Kevin Byard?
Who?
I don't know that I have ever seen. I'm sure Kevin Byard has had a personal foul called on him before at some point. You're in this league long enough, but not in a big moment like that.
I can't remember one like a critical one.
Yeah, it was just jarring to see it. It wasn't a great debut for KB.
Home debut.
In Philly. Oh, right. Right. And big rivalry, obviously, NFC East, and the Eagles still get the win. They're still a one-loss football team. But that was jarring to see Kevin Byard called for a big personal foul, something that certainly would have fallen under Mike Vrabel's dumb bleep to hurt the team.
And that is not a player that you associate with dumb bleep to hurt the team. Apparently, Josina Anderson of CBS Sports. It's the first time that I think Kevin Byard has been at least asked about the trade by a non-Philadelphia media member. She caught up with him after the game.
Honestly, the emotion side of it, I guess just being a vet, I just understand it's a business. I understand the position that Tennessee was in when they did trade me. Obviously, Vrabel did a great job of just being honest with me and kind of understand the situation about, draft picks and things like that. So, they made a business move, and that's what it is in this business. But if it was to the way it did happen, I was blessed to be able to come to a team that obviously was 6-1 at the time. We've been able to win 2 straight. So this is a very talented team, has great leadership, a great culture, and it definitely feels good. But obviously, I'll always be a Tennessee Titan, and obviously I love it there, have some great times there. But as of right now, we're on a mission with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay, so that's Kevin Byard after the trade. Among qualified safeties on Pro Football Focus, and again, we say every time we cite Pro Football Focus, it's not a perfect measurement, but it is the one that we have the most access to. Where do you think Kevin Byard ranks among qualified safeties according to Pro Football Focus grade this year? If you had to take a guess.
It makes me think it's lower, just the way I'm going to say 13th.
The 13th ranked safety this year is Miami Dolphins safety Deshaun Elliott. Kevin Byard is the 37th ranked safety according to Pro Football Focus.
All season.
All season. That's with the Eagles and with the Titans. Now, I mean, the names that he's around, like there's a lot of safeties who are playing football, and this is a lot of players that qualify for Pro Football Focus grades. I think I'm looking at a list of 50 of them, just according to this. He is down there in the middle of the pack with names like Brian Cook of the Kansas City Chiefs and Tracy Walker of the Detroit Lions. Those are the 2 names that he is in between right now. That's not the kind of level of play. And again, Pro Football Focus grades not perfect, but they do give you at least a decent sample size, a decent snapshot of what it is that you think you may be seeing. He's not performing up to his standard. We knew that he was a depreciating asset at his age. I didn't necessarily think that his play had fallen off tremendously here, but at least it's been a rough go of it through the first 2 games in Philly for KB. And I just think it's do you pay attention to players like that? Like, will you act, not that you'd actively seek out an Eagles game to watch, I mean, any number of them now, right? Mariota, AJ.
Well, you don't really have to actively seek out A.J. Brown to see what he's doing this season. I mean, is he the best wide receiver in the NFL now?
Yeah, because, I mean, Justin Jefferson's hurt. Yeah. He's the best wide receiver in football right now.
Don't really have to seek him out for that. He's all over the place.
I don't want people to think that we're in, like, I also agree that Titans fans need to move on from A.J. Brown, but it's not helped by the fact that he's literally the best player at his position in the sport. So that when he's brought up, like I know I laugh there, it's not done to intentionally needle Titans fans. It's just that he is one of, I mean, he might win Offensive Player of the Year this year. Who's in second place? I mean, if MVP is a quarterback award and Offensive Player of the Year is going to be divided up amongst the rest of them, is he not the Offensive Player of the Year?
He's the best non-quarterback in the NFL right now. He and Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill is having just a stunning season. He's on pace for a 2,000-yard season be the first ever, set an NFL single-season record. Although AJ might be as well. I haven't taken a snapshot. I just know what he's been doing in the last.
I'll pull up their Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, I'm curious on how they match up right now as far as numbers go. I know AJ's on more of a tear as far as the last 5-6 games are concerned, and he's doing things that have never been done. But they could both be on pace for a historic 2,000-yard season.
Okay, who do you think has more catches?
Catches, I will go with Tyreek.
You're correct.
Because of just how often the Dolphins throw the football.
Only by 2. He's got 69 to AJ's 67. Who do you think has more yards?
I'll say AJ.
Tyreek Hill does. It's 1,076 to 1,005 for AJ Brown. So they're very close in terms of receptions, very close in terms of yards. Who do you think has more touchdowns?
Tyreek has like 8 or 9.
He does have 8. AJ has 6 on the season. So
okay, so those two are the co-contenders right now for Offensive Player of the Year.
There's not a running back out there, is there? I mean,
Christian McCaffrey's the NFL's lead rusher.
But availability, and I don't necessarily trust that to last. I mean, not to do. It's the mid-season point, so I guess the only way to do it is at the mid-season point. Who is the Offensive Player of the Year? And right now it'd be Tyreek Hill. The other 2 players in the discussion would be AJ Brown and Christian McCaffrey, if we're basically removing quarterbacks from Offensive Player of the Year, because we know that MVP is going to go to a quarterback.
Where do you think Derrick Henry's at right now among NFL running backs as far as yardage?
I bet Derrick's 8th. 5th.
After the Steelers game, Henry moved up to 2nd. Obviously, there was a whole slate of games to be played on Sunday. But McCaffrey's the NFL's lead rusher at the moment with 652 yards. Then it's Zach Moss, DeAndre Swift, Raheem Mostert with 605, and Henry with 601.
That's not names that you're used to seeing Derrick Henry around.
No, definitely not Moss and Mostert. That's for sure.
615-737-1045 is the number. Lucas, the Grid just signed me out. What do we have coming up next?
Mike Wilson of Knox News. Talk a little football, talk a little basketball, the meaning of life. Mike can talk about anything.
Excellent. That's next.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
later on. In the meantime, it's time to shame Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News Sentinel. KnoxNews.com is where you go for football, basketball, baseball, all of it. Why was your phone on Do Not Disturb when we had you booked for a radio interview?
Yeah, been a little bit sick since last night and just forgot to take it off this morning. So that's on me. Mostly I just didn't want to talk to you, though.
No. You can't come in here and then say, "Oh, I've been unwell. I'm so sorry." It's actually a strain for me to come on the radio show today, and I don't want to talk to you. You can't come in here trying to go for the sympathy vote when you didn't pick up your phone the first time.
But I'm so cold.
Is college basketball warming you up at all?
I hope so. My guess is this is just the shockwave of having been in Lexington and East Lansing last weekend, then back to normal human weather in Knoxville. So,
it definitely. We'll circle back to the Vols last night. I want to talk to you about Zakai Ziegler a little bit, just since it's the first time that we've seen him in any kind of sample size since the ACL tear. Football-wise, though, it's probably as important a game as there is on the schedule between Tennessee and Missouri on the road for Tennessee. We understand the road woes for the Vols this year. But before we move on to that game, what did you make of Nico in what took a while for him to get in a blowout loss or a blowout win over UConn?
Yeah, I mean, about the same, I guess, what you've seen. I mean, you got a longer sample size for one. A little bit more of him actually running the offense opposed to just some sporadic experiences against Virginia and UTSA. I think what we've seen is consistently that ability to move around really well outside the pocket, throw on the run. And you see a comfort level just playing the game of football from Nico. Obviously, there's some offensive management stuff, schematics, some things that obviously are going to continue to be worked on. But I think you've seen kind of that raw skill set that obviously had him becoming such a highly rated recruit, and that was present again.
Is Joe Milton playing the most efficient version of his game that we have seen thus far in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah. In terms of talking about him starting anyway, I mean, his backup appearances last season were outstanding. But, yeah, the last two games, 17 of 20 for 227 and a touchdown. I think it was 11 of 14 for 254. With two scores against UConn, hasn't thrown a pick since South Carolina on September 30th. So you're seeing Joe Milton manage the game well, and I thought what was really encouraging against UConn was the slant to Squirrel that Squirrel took for a touchdown on the money. It wasn't behind him, wasn't too high, it was on the money. Got Ramel Keaton for that other touchdown, again, on the money. Yeah, we've seen Joe Milton perform at a more consistent and efficient level than he has at any point this season in the past 2 weeks.
At By Mike Wilson is where you can follow our dear friend Mike Wilson. KnoxNews.com is where you can read all the great work that he and his colleagues do on the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at what Tennessee can do in this game, I think they're going to be able to run the ball. Missouri's rushing defense ranks pretty highly, but that's largely because they've really shut down South Carolina and Vanderbilt, both of whom cannot run the football. So that statistical element, I think, is a little bit slanted because of that. I do think Tennessee's rushing attack is going to have success at Missouri. I do think Tennessee will have problems with Luther Burden. And I think Brady Cook is a pretty reliable quarterback, especially in a season where maybe other than Milroe and Daniels, the SEC as a whole has been pretty unreliable at quarterback overall anyway. So I do think Missouri's a solid football team. I think they play hard football, and I think that's why they were able to go into Georgia and look really nice at a lot of points there because they do play a very physical, good brand of football. They're good in the red zone. Do a pretty good job taking care of the ball. So it's a good football team. And, yeah, I mean, Tennessee's work is cut out for it. You don't don't necessarily think of that Missouri game at the start of the season as a notable one, but right now it's probably the difference between 8-4 and a 9-3 season for Tennessee.
Are they the biggest surprise, Missouri, in the SEC this year?
I'd say so. I think in terms of going into the year, yeah, I think Jalen Milroe's development is probably that other thing you talk about as the biggest surprise, because he was not good week one, but that was obviously after the season started. So, in terms of a team, I do think that would have to be Missouri. A&M maybe too, but in the opposite direction.
It's so wrong that I just sit there and laugh at the science experiment that is Texas A&M on a week in, week out basis. But I can't help it. It's in part because I just like the way that Jimbo sounds. Every time he's giving one of these panicked press conferences, I like laughing at what he looks like with this giant notebook-sized playbook in front of his face the entire time, even though he's no longer calling the plays. Like the whole Texas A&M experiment has to be a total suffering for a fan base that just very much cares and invests and wants their football program to be successful, and all it is a laughingstock.
It has not been good, and it's kind of shocking, I guess, when you look overall at what it's been under Jimbo, because this has not been anything consistent. Other than, the recruiting's good, but the play, not there. So, yeah, I think when you talk about maybe surprise success, it's probably Missouri. Surprise disappointment is A&M. But then again, to some extent, that's kind of an A&M brand, is to let down. So maybe it's not such a surprise after all.
Nothing quite anywhere close to a letdown last night between the Vols and Tennessee Tech as the men's basketball team, gets their season started. What did you like? What did you not like about Tennessee's debut, where they did very easily cover the 32.5?
Yeah, I like seeing Zakai Ziegler get back in, obviously, because that's such a key piece of what this team is going to be. They look great in their exhibitions, but didn't have Zakai or Santiago Vescovi in those games. So now you're seeing the whole Tennessee brand for this season. And I think, again, it's a Dalton Connect show to some extent right now. And, Tennessee's gone into the portal in recent years to add shooting and scoring, and it's been unsteady with those guys. Justin Powell, Tyreek Key, EJ Anasicki was a guy in that mix. But Dalton Connect, and mind you, it's 3 games, looks like the real deal. Looks like a pro, a long-term NBA pro in terms of that offensive profile that he brings. Jordan Gainey, likewise, had 14 last night. I think Connect had 17. So the 2 leading scorers were the transfers, which is kind of the story of the exhibitions as well. So you're seeing this deep Tennessee team with a lot of experienced guards, a lot of good scoring guards. That's exciting. And certainly getting Zakai Ziegler back in the mix of that means a lot.
Talking Vols with Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News-Sentinel here on 104.5 The Zone.
So we've seen that from the last few years, Mike. Rick Barnes returning that core of Santiago Vescovi, Josiah Jordan James, Zakai Ziegler, and just sort of supplementing it with the likes of Tyreek Key and EJ Anasicki, like you mentioned. But they did more to build the roster around those guys this offseason than they have at any point in the Rick Barnes era. What do you think Barnes was most looking for? What do you think he most is hoping to find with that group of newcomers, whether it's freshmen or guys like Freddie DeLeon coming in eligible to play, or transfers like Dalton Connect?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be shameless here and plug a story from the Knoxville News-Sentinel yesterday on how Tennessee recruited the transfer class, because a section of that is they went into this offseason kind of looking at a literal drawing board with scenarios of who's gone, who's coming back, who might be back, what do they need. And the needs were legitimate scoring and shooting and versatility. And I think one thing that they sneakily addressed, they insulated themselves from a devastating injury. Zakai Ziegler getting hurt last year didn't end that team season, but they were hamstrung by that because they did not have another player that could run the point. Jemai Meshack was not that guy. Santiago Vescovi can do it, but he's so much better off the ball and running around that when you put him at point guard, you're taking away his biggest strength. Therefore, the team is hurt. I think they did all of those things. Jordan Gainey, Dalton Connect, high-level shooters. Dalton Connect, as good of a scorer as there was that went into the portal last year. Gainey can run the point, decent defensively. Dalton's coming along defensively. So they really addressed those things. And I think the freshmen all have opportunities to be really good players at Tennessee. I don't know who's going to be the best this year. I like the way that Cade Phillips fills in rebounding and hustling, because that's kind of more what they need out of the post this year, opposed to a dump it down scorer type. He's not going to be that. Freddie DeLeon looks like a future star. Rick Barnes was hyped up about how Freddie played defense against Tennessee Tech. That's kind of been one of those question marks. And Cameron Carr looks like a potential future pro, just with length, shooting, size, ability. So they added a lot. But when you talk about immediate impact guys, I mean, what they did in the portal is really impressive, and it's different than what they've done in the portal in previous seasons.
It's not like they're runaway SEC favorites, but Tennessee does or did open the season prior to yesterday as the betting favorites, depending on which sports book you look at, for the SEC title this year. Is that a fair assessment to you?
It is. I do think it is. Obviously, there's still a lot to figure out, a lot to prove. I mean, Tennessee's going to have a good test at Wisconsin on Friday. So I get to go back to the cold north again with my bald head. So that's going to be fun. Yeah, I do think that's a fair assessment, though.
He's Mike Wilson, Knoxville News Sentinel. KnoxNews.com is where you can read all the stories, the ones that he's plugging, the ones that he's not plugging. By Mike Wilson is where you can follow him when he bothers to turn his phone off. Do not disturb. Thank you, Mike.
You guys could never disturb me.
Feel better, buddy. Mike Wilson with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, Lucas, you just asked me a question with a very concerned look on your face. What happened?
So John Burton just tweeted out that...
John Burton of News Channel 5.
Right. He tweeted an hour ago, the Titans list Ryan Tannehill as QB1 on this week's unofficial depth chart. Of course, Vrabel will address the media today at 1 p.m. You can hear that press conference live right off the top of Blaine and Mickey. But
why are you doing this to people? Why are you causing them unnecessary stress?
I'm trying to figure out where the unofficial depth chart is. It's not in the game release, which came out yesterday. We would have been talking about this yesterday.
It is in the game release.
It is in the game release. So Ryan Tannehill is QB1 in the depth chart per the game release.
That's right.
I'm just surprised this didn't come up yesterday.
Well, we didn't get the game release until what time did that land in my email? It was well after the radio show was off the air. But yes, Ryan Tannehill is in fact quarterback 1 on the Titans unofficial depth chart. What did Mike say on Tuesday? Once we have a depth chart in hand, we'll get back to you. Well, 1 o'clock today, kids. Mike Vrabel's going to speak to the media. So I'm looking at it right now, and it is on page 108 of the official weekly game release. So you have to dig for it a little bit, bud. But it's worth noting that also listed as the starting left tackle on the unofficial game release this week is Nicholas Petit-Frere, who we assume is not playing on Sunday. Given the nature of the shoulder surgery that was reported on by Kaharski this week.
But Levis is listed as QB2.
Which is new.
Yes, it is new.
That's new. So some things have been changed. Some things have not been changed. The thing that hasn't changed is that Ryan Tannehill's still listed as your starter.
Chris Hubbard also listed at right tackle, and he's
in concussion protocol until he's not.
Yeah.
So, we'll get updates on that today. Jonathan Hernandez says, put Ryan Tannehill behind Dillard. Like, actually behind him? We've tried that already. That's not a good combination.
And Kyle Phillips still listed as the starting punt returner, and he has not returned a punt since London.
So, grain of salt with the unofficial depth chart. The only reason it's notable is why, Lucas? Mike Vrabel told us there'd be a depth chart that came out on Tuesday and that we would be able to talk about it then. So that's the situation with said depth chart. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to get involved, as I said, he'll speak to the media. Vrabel will at 1 p.m. today. I don't know how they haven't sent us a full Titans media schedule because this is a little bit wonky. Normally he'd speak on Wednesday, so with the starting quarterback, Derrick Henry on Thursday, and Mike Vrabel again on Friday, but with him on a Tuesday. I don't know what that means. You are getting a reaction out of the FNM Bank chat. I can't speak for the rest of the audience listening, wherever people are listening, but you have caused a reaction.
I mean, it's fair for us to look at the depth chart when Vrabel was telling us Friday, batting away quarterback questions, say there will be a depth chart, there will be a depth chart.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things about the depth chart. Like the most glaring thing is Kyle Phillips as the starting punt returner, when Kyle Phillips has been active now for multiple weeks and has not been the punt returner.
Eric Garror has been the punt returner.
Yeah, he's playing. He's getting snapped. He's playing actually well on offense. He had a career night in Pittsburgh.
He's their leading receiver.
And he's not the punt returner. So lots of grains of salt with the unofficial depth chart, but Vrabel kept deferring to the Tuesday depth chart.
Well, okay. So there's that. And I hate to put this out there. How valuable is a Mike Vrabel press conference? Like, in terms of information actually to be gleaned. Because at this point, does it not feel a bit performative that we don't, and listen, he gets asked some lazy questions, and I'm not removing myself from that just because I'm not there every day anymore. I'm there every Sunday or every post game and most Fridays. But, I'm guilty of that too, where there aren't the best questions asked of him in particular moments. I'm not saying that I've asked the best questions in my lifetime, but like the Vrabel press conferences not feel a bit performative at this point, where I want to take him at his word about the things that he's telling us about in a press conference, but he's usually not willing to divulge very much. And that when I hear him defer to a Tuesday depth chart in ways that Mike Vrabel has never talked about the meaning of a depth chart ever in 7 years, get the bleep out of here, depth chart. What am I supposed to do with that when there it is, Ryan Tannehill? How is that not supposed to evoke a reaction? Like, I'm pro him not having to publicly say who he wants to start at quarterback. I don't care until it's a problem, right? Like, don't make it a problem until it's a problem. I am totally in that camp. That the freak out around Friday afternoon, I thought was over the top, whether it was real outrage or fake outrage, because I think there's plenty of that goes around too, especially on social media. But if you're going to tell me, we'll follow up with you, we'll put out a depth chart, there'll probably be some offensive line moving parts too. And there Ryan Tannehill is sitting as the starter on the depth chart an hour and a half before he speaks.
And we haven't talked about the fact that Ryan Tannehill might not be healthy enough to play on Sunday.
Oh, hell, I don't even know if he's going to practice tomorrow.
Like, there's no need. Last year, Tannehill missed 2 games, right, after the first ankle injury. He missed because Malik started 2 games, Houston and Kansas City. Remember, Tannehill was pushing to play in Kansas City on Sunday Night Football.
Yep.
And then you felt like after, watching the offense with Malik at quarterback for 2 weeks.
Okay, ride it out a little
There
bit.
was a sense of, like, we got to get him back.
Yeah.
There's not really that sense now because the offense has been functional. Levis has been functional in these 2 games. So I wonder if that factors into Tannehill and his timetable to come back.
Sure, but also, and this is a wrinkle that I'll throw in here. Remember when Derrick Henry had the stress fracture in Indianapolis? And it happened in like the first quarter, all right? It happened pretty early on in the game. He was medically cleared to return, and we asked Mike afterwards if any thought was given to him further injuring himself even though he was medically cleared, because they put him back out there. He finished the game. He had a critical 3rd down conversion. It was insanity. Like, he wasn't efficient. It was like 2.8 yards per carry. It was disgusting, and he shouldn't have been out there. But, Vrabel told us after that game, said, well, Derek has earned the right to tell us whether, if he's medically cleared, he wants to go back out there or not. Is Ryan Tannehill one of these players that's earned the right with his head coach as to when he wants to get back out there or not? Because all of my previous experience with the relationship of Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill says yes, that Ryan Tannehill has earned that kind of say. So, I mean, like I said, 1 o'clock, I don't think he's going to give you any answers. Maybe he will. I honestly, I don't know what to expect. Maybe that's what he wants. Maybe that is actually the purpose of all this. Because all that this depth chart nonsense does is make me want to drop my head in my hands and be like, it was so unnecessary to even invoke the depth chart. We haven't talked about a depth chart all year long other than to make fun of the fact that the unofficial depth chart is on the official team's website and in the official team's media release this week. Goodness. Tennessee high school football heroes playoffs in full swing. Centennial running back Dominic Reed makes his 2nd appearance on the program, coming up next.
A first down would kill it off here. Dominic Reed out of the Wildcat. He wants the touchdown. He's going to get it. That's 4 for number 1.
That is Lucas Panzica on the call of Dominic Reed's 4th touchdown. Centennial running back joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back on the show. Congratulations on the success this weekend. I know you guys got to be excited.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you knew you just needed the first. At what point did you recognize? Okay, 6 here sounds nice too.
As soon as coach told me that I was getting the ball, it was time for me to get in the end zone.
So it was time. You mean the first 3 times were not enough? It was time?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Love that.
So Dominic, for you guys, this is the first postseason win as a program since 2016, and obviously the playoffs continue on throughout the course of the next couple of weeks. Just how big a moment, I know the job is not done yet for you guys, but just how big a moment was that for you and for you to be such a big part of it?
You know, I'm grateful to have this coaching staff that we have now and all the fans that support us, and it's a big step for this program in general to come this far in the playoffs, and, you know, we just got to keep it going.
Well, Dominic, I know you're focused on your run right now in the second round, but obviously as a semifinalist for the 5A Mr. Football Award, you know, that award has a lot to do with numbers, and your head coach, Jamal Stewart, told us on the MyTV 30 crew last week that there were multiple games this season where you approached your head coach and you told him that if there are other guys looking to get touches, you want those guys to get touches. Why is that important to you, where you obviously could inflate those numbers? I mean, you've got 30 touchdowns on the season. That number could be 33, 34, 35. But you're ceding those to teammates in the earlier portion of the season. Why was that important to you to make that point to your head coach that you wanted to see some of those guys get an opportunity, knowing that you're going to get your opportunities, obviously, in the most important moments?
Well, football, it's a team sport, and I'm all about my teammates and, you know, spreading the love to everybody, because when everybody succeeds, I feel like the day is successful. And I'm going to continue to play that way and think that way. That way everybody's happy, and we can continue to striving and to win.
So 9-2 so far on the season. Cheville up next, who had a big 41-7 win at home over Hillsborough on Friday. You guys have met before. What excites you about the matchup?
Really just the chance to play them in the second round and to, you know, have a good football game and just, you know, go out there and do what we love.
Dominic, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say we're going to treat it like any other game, 0-0 this week, just trying to go 1-0 on Friday.
You've got Tanner Lee back in the backfield, was the Williamson County Offensive Player of the Year in 2022, missed the majority of this season with an ankle injury. He has a big performance last Friday, over 100 rush yards. And the way that you guys are able to cycle you guys in, whether it's you and the Wildcat near the goal line, Tanner Lee getting the lion's share of the carries, how dangerous does that make you guys as an offense with Elijah Nieves operating the whole system to have Tanner Lee back in the backfield and have that 1-2 punch?
You know, just keeping fresh legs at running back really helps. And with the help of our O-line doing their job each and every play, you know, it's hard to stop backs that are going to dig each and every play to get the first down and touchdowns.
Did we at least get you out of class today, or are we interrupting your lunch?
Oh, no. Thank you. I'm out of class right now.
Thank you.
Which class?
I'm in English right now.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we could give you a little bit of break from the grammar, and we appreciate you stopping by. Continued health and success, and it's been a lot of fun to watch so far.
Thank you for having me.
That is Dominic Reed, Centennial running back, in his second appearance as this week's high school well, not this week's, but as a high school football hero here on the show.
That guy's fun to watch. Had a big 36-yard touchdown in that game against Columbia last Friday where he kind of gets the give, but it's an awkward exchange, and he kind of bobbles the football around and hesitates and regathers himself and then is just off and running down the left sideline. And once he gets ahead of steam, really tough to stop. Dominic Reed, real contender for the 5A Mr. Football Award.
That was the most genuine thank you that I think we've gotten in 3 years doing that segment. Thank you for getting me out of English class. People in the chat are advocating for us to keep him on for an extra segment so he can get out. No, I am pro people going to class. I'm the Duke professor. I'm the one telling Riley Leonard that he has to finish his paper because the offensive line did.
Jamal Stewart, as head coach, has done a really nice job, too, in year one. He did a fantastic job the last few years with East Nashville, taking them to back-to-back state championship appearances, and now here he is operating a 5A contender in Centennial in year one. Fantastic hire by Kevin Dyson and Centennial High School to bring in Jamal Stewart this year.
What's coming up this weekend in the high school football world?
So no high school ball on the zone. Tennessee heads up to Wisconsin. That's an 8 p.m. tip Friday night. So we'll have Vol Network coverage of the basketball game here, but I'll be back with Sammy Kincaid, Bruno Reagan, the whole MyTV 30 crew. We are headed to Smyrna, who is 7-4 and hosting Ravenwood, who is 8-3 in the second round of the 6A playoffs. So haven't seen Ravenwood since week one. Will and I had their season opener against Alcoa, and they have been on quite a run since that point. Did suffer back-to-back losses to Oakland and Brentwood, but have kind of recomposed themselves. Won in week one against Stewart's Creek, and they'll take on a Smyrna team who Will and Brad Hopkins had last week as they broadcasted Smyrna's 26-14 win over Independence. So hope you'll join us. 7 o'clock kick Friday night on MyTV 30.
Television's own Lucas Panzica. All right. We are officially at the halfway point of the NFL season. Remember that Mike Vrabel will speak at 1. The quarterback questions will be asked. But in the meantime, where are the Titans at the midway point of 2023? We'll talk about it coming up next.
It is almost 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. The Tennessee Titans, coming off the mini-bye, are looking ahead to Sunday's matchup in Tampa Bay. A report earlier today from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network that the Titans are waiving defensive lineman Naquan Jones. Report yesterday from Paul Kaharski stated that Titans offensive tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere is having shoulder surgery after an injury he suffered in the loss to Pittsburgh on Thursday night, and that he could miss the remainder of the season. Mike Vrabel will meet with the media coming up at 1 p.m. You can hear that live right here on The Zone. Tonight, Nashville Soccer Club hosts Orlando City in the MLS Cup playoffs. It is game 2 of a best-of-3 first-round series that Nashville trails 1-0, needing a win to force game 3 on Sunday. Pre-game coverage right here on The Zone starts at 7:30. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Tuesday. Thanks for hanging out with us. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Titans are at the halfway point of the NFL season. Well, every team is officially at the halfway point of the NFL season, or at least over the hump, because the NFL is greedy and wants to play 17 games and a weird number instead of 16 games. That's fine. We are going to take a look at something that Jim Wyatt wrote for TennesseeTitans.com. Did you see this yesterday? 3 reasons to be hopeful and 3 reasons to be discouraged. Jimmy always does things in groups of 6, but I thought it was interesting to kind of go over and worth doing with the radio audience, given that we are officially at the halfway point of the season. 8 down, 9 to go. That's what lies ahead. Most of them at home, given that this team has had a lot of games, a lot of work on the road. They have 2 more, obviously, Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, but we'll finish out the vast majority of the stretch at Nissan Stadium.
It really does feel like they've barely been at home this year.
Well, it's because they have. They've been at home 3 times in the 8 games that they've played. So, I mean, it should have been 4. The London game counts, but it doesn't. So now, with some ground to make up, to put it generously, in the AFC South, team is 3 games behind the Jacksonville Jags, who are in the lead of the division. They are also looking up at the Texans and the Colts. Respectively, Colts have the head-to-head over Tennessee at this point. So what's the biggest reason to be optimistic on the roster? Or not, maybe not even on the roster. I won't even make it about the roster unless you want to make it about the roster. What's the biggest reason that Tennessee Titans fans should be hopeful?
Quarterback.
Yep. He has thrown for 500 yards on the dot, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception at the very end in a game, that just trying to make a desperation play. Don't fault him for the interception, even though that is the play that ends it. Pushes the ball downfield, gives them an additional dynamic on offense that they don't seem to have. And the issue is there's not a lot around him right now to help him further his development. Derrick Henry is still here, yes, but he's not having the kind of Derrick Henry season that we're accustomed to. He's, merely 5th in the rushing totals as opposed to 1st or 2nd.
Yeah, merely on pace for over 1,200 yards.
Yep, just that, merely. Offensive line situation is bad and getting worse. Nicholas Petit-Frere expected to miss a considerable amount of time, we'll call it. There's not been any injured reserve designations, so we can't put anything officially on it yet, or at least 4 games yet. But shoulder surgery is the reporting, and the offensive line group is already bad. Receivers. Treylon Burks. It sounds like it wasn't as serious as it looked. Obviously those situations are to be treated very seriously, and anytime a player gets his face mask cut off and carted off the field, you want to make sure that you're taking that with due concern. But was good to see him up and moving in the locker room afterwards. And seems like it is not as serious or at least Mike Vrabel relayed it not being as serious as the scene on the sideline might have indicated that it was. So we'll see what Treylon Burks' availability is this week. He was technically in concussion protocol. It was not determined whether or not he actually had a concussion or not. Wide receivers around Will Levis are DeAndre Hopkins and
Kyle Phillips on Thursday.
Yeah, but somebody had to get the numbers because they took away Hopkins in the second half.
Yes,
I'm
they
looking
did.
forward to talking to Cosell about that because the Steelers did a number on DeAndre in the second half of that game because he was delayed spinning out of all of their tackles in the first half and basically dragging that offense. DeAndre Hopkins and Steelers defensive penalty yardage were the thing keeping the Titans offense alive in the first half there.
Yeah, 60 yards in the first half and no catches in the second half.
So, all right, how should I view the Kyle Phillips performance? Is that because DeAndre Hopkins was taken away and somebody has to get the catches? Or is that because Kyle Phillips made meaningful plays at the end of the game? He did put them in position.
Why can't that be both?
It can be.
Isn't that a role Kyle Phillips can play for this team?
I don't know.
Somebody's got to get the catches.
He has yet to do so consistently. So, okay. I'm not going to sell you any Kyle Phillips stock. I wouldn't do that after the last season. I'm going to temper my enthusiasm about Kyle Phillips until such time as I see him do it on at least a recurring basis.
By the way, he was open over the middle on that fourth down.
Yeah, I saw Seth Walder point that out with the Next Gen Stats dots. I don't know what his progressions are. So Kyle Phillips appeared to be open. But is that because he's not really a factor in where Will Levis is supposed to be looking? Is that because the safety knew that Kyle Phillips at that point was out of the play and started to drift towards, I think it was a go route as opposed to the crosser that Phillips was running? Because I think, if I remember correctly, it was 24 for the Steelers, could have easily peeled back and stopped basically where Phillips was coming open. They had a defender there. It's just the defender decided, it appeared that they had moved on from Phillips in whatever progression it looked like. So I don't know if Kyle Phillips was actually open there. He appeared to be on the dots.
Be an interesting question for Tim Kelly this week, which I'm sure he'll get asked about that series.
Yeah. Well,
run, deep ball to Burks.
I would like it. I mean, I'm dying for an honest answer from somebody about those last couple of sequences because I don't feel like I've been misled necessarily, but something does not equate to the way that they handled the end of the first half in Pittsburgh versus the way that they handled the situation in Cleveland, a very similar situation with very similar implications, if not a better chance to try and score a touchdown in Pittsburgh than they had in Cleveland.
Wait. What are you talking about in Cleveland? You're talking about the end of the first half?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So I'm talking about the series at the end of the game.
I'm talking about several different instances where Tim Kelly is going to receive questions about.
But in that moment, you're talking about the end of the first half where they go for the field goal.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying that is among the things that I would like to hear Tim Kelly asked about. We won't be able to go to the press conference. I'll be here doing the radio show. So whatever Tim Kelly has to say to that effect, Tim Kelly, not a great quote. So I don't expect, perhaps we'll be surprised. We'll wait until Thursday to see what Tim Kelly has to say about those various offensive sequences. But for those of you demanding answers immediately after on Sunday, we don't talk to the coordinators until Thursday, and this is a part of the reason why. But I do think that there's a couple of different things about this football team that are trending in the right direction, Will Levis being one of them. The only other personnel plus that I can honestly say that I feel good about at the halfway point, because I've been disappointed by the defensive front. And I didn't have high expectations for the secondary. They're missing some parts. But really, the only thing personnel-wise that I can say that I have great confidence in, other than the hope of a quarterback, is the kicker. Nick Folk hasn't missed a field goal and missed an extra point. All Nick Folk does is make Make the kicks. Now, he has made 27 consecutive, not all here, obviously, but it's the second longest streak of a 16-year NFL career that he's had. He also set a new NFL record for the most consecutive field goals made under 40 yards. He now has 72 straight field goals from under 40 without a miss. He's not kicked a ton of extra points because they're not scoring a ton of touchdowns. But at least for the viability of a field goal kicker, even though he's probably a shorter-term solution, Nick Folk has effectively solved one of the biggest problems on the roster, even though there are many other problems on the roster. Now, Jim has 3 reasons to be optimistic and 3 reasons to be concerned in his write-up at TennesseeTitans.com. You want to take a guess at the 3 reasons to be concerned?
Concerned. Okay.
What are 3 things that we consistently talk about plaguing this Titans team?
You've already hit on the 3 to be positive about.
Well, the 3 positives are kicker, Levis, in it, but basically that they're not dead. The third positive thing to sell the fan base right now is, hey, they're technically still mathematically in the game.
Offensive line, obviously, is one.
That is not on the list.
That is not part of it.
Although it should be.
Run defense.
Run defense is one.
A thing that you were supposed to continue to carry over from the last couple of years. That's been bottom half of the league.
They're 19th in the NFL right now with rush defense, 114.8 yards per game. They gave up almost 170 to the Steelers on the ground, and that was some of the stats. After I had time to go back and watch the Steelers game like on TV and seeing the all 22, the stats on the Steelers offense coming into that game where they averaged 33 yards in the first quarter and the Titans let them go right down the field on the first possession of the game and score a touchdown, that they had so little success pushing the ball down the field until the fourth quarter, where Kenny Pickett, fourth quarter Kenny, Mike Golick Jr. warned us, there he was, fourth quarter Kenny out there dealing. He had to make one big throw, 133-yard completion, and he got it because, of course, the Titans defense is giving up an X-play at the end of the game.
And that's been the story of the Steelers season.
Yeah.
One big play.
One big play.
Hang around. The one play in the fourth quarter, and you somehow win. That's been their story all year.
4.06 yards per play on the ground. And like I said, 166, almost 170 yards rushing versus the Steelers. Now, they cut Naquan Jones today. I'm able to be asked about it. I'm curious. I don't know what the logic is there. It's a rotational player for the past 3 years for you. I don't think Naquan Jones was an outright problem. So what they are doing on the roster with that 53rd roster spot, active roster spot, because he was on the active roster, we'll see. Maybe it has something to do with the offensive line. They don't have depth to give on the defensive line, though, is my bigger contention. We can get into the other 2 things that are letting the Titans down coming up next. We can also talk about which AFC South quarterback of the 4 you would want the most moving forward between Trevor Lawrence, C.J. Stroud, a hurt Anthony Richardson, or at least a hurt for the rest of this year Anthony Richardson, and, of course, Will Levis. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Titans at the halfway point of the season. 8 games down, 9 to play. 2 more games in a row on the road before the next home game at Nissan Stadium, Thanksgiving weekend. I guess that would be when they play the Carolina Panthers. That game should be easily attainable, especially given this team's record at home. All 3 games, all 3 wins have come at Nissan Stadium.
Did you watch Bryce Young the other day?
I did.
It was bad.
It was not good. The pick 6 was particularly deflating because it looked like, with the game still reasonably in hand, or not in hand, but within reach. Bryce Young driving. I can't remember the name of the Colts defensive back that picked him off, but it was just it was a death pick. Bryce Young throwing death picks this year. Bryce Young being poorly protected. Bryce Young's play calling letting him down, so much so that Frank Reich has to give up play calling duties in the middle of the season after being questioned on it, and it took him an extra 3 weeks after being questioned on it to actually do it. The best Carolina Panthers wide receiver is the ghost of Adam Thielen, and they traded away the number 1 wide receiver that they had for the right to draft Bryce Young. So, what's the most important thing a young quarterback can have at any point in their developmental career? I think an offensive line is probably still the thing that I would put first and foremost. A competent group of offensive linemen, a veteran group of offensive linemen, not just to keep you upright, but to help you navigate all the different things that you're going to have to do operationally and structurally as a young quarterback in the NFL. 1B to that would be the thing that I think the Titans have for Will Levis moving forward. It's why I didn't really ever think that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be moved. I think you could make an argument for a veteran wide receiver being the most important thing for a rookie or young quarterback, even as much so as a competent offensive line group. DeAndre Hopkins makes Will Levis's life so much easier, at least stands to. Now, Levis saw what life without D-Hop looked like in the second half of that Steelers game, and it was infinitely harder. But I think that Hopkins for Levis is as important a piece as they can have in place for the viability of that young quarterback moving forward. Now, we're talking about at the halfway point, Jim Wyatt had a write-up on TennesseeTitans.com, 3 things to be hopeful about with the football team and 3 things to be discouraged by. Run defense was one of the 3 to be discouraged by. Lucas, can you name the other 2?
If offensive line is not in there, which we had low expectations for that group anyway, right?
Yeah. I can't be discouraged by a thing that I already knew was bad.
How about their performances on the road?
Yep, road failures. Titans are 3-0 at Nissan Stadium, 0-5 over away from their home stadium. They have 3 of the last 4 and 5 of the last 7 at home, as Jimmy notes. Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, the next 2 on the road. If they have to figure out how to win a game on the road. Otherwise, they're going to end up 3-7 down the stretch. It's not feasible that they can expect to win football games this way.
Titans Kyle has a good one on the F&M Bank chat. Turnover differential.
They don't turn the ball over.
Can you tell me how many interceptions this team has this season?
Do they have one?
Yep.
Amani Hooker?
They have 2.
2.
Bottom of the league.
It's last? In
last.
Turnovers or interceptions?
No, interceptions. Interceptions.
Yeah, they're not they're not getting the kind of pressure that we thought they might get.
Right.
They're not disrupting quarterbacks.
Think about that.
Not consistently.
To be on pace, things need to come in bunches, right? But technically, to be on pace for 4 for an entirety of a season?
They're the hardest. 4 for an entirety of a season is tough.
And they could get 3. They could get 3 in one game. It's the first half of the season to have 2 interceptions.
They are the hardest thing. Interceptions specifically are the hardest thing to reproduce. Right? You can put yourself in position to succeed. They have been thrown interceptable passes but haven't capitalized on them. But yeah, that they only have 2 interceptions through 8 games is a problem because they're not forcing enough fumbles to make up for it. They're not knocking the ball out when the quarterback's at the top of the pocket and they, reach an arm in there. They're trying. They're not really even batting balls down at the line of scrimmage with any kind of great frequency, which creates a lot of those turnovers for this team. Jeff Autry getting their length involved and tipping it up to a linebacker or a nickelback that's hanging out there to pick off the pass. It's not great. It's a reason why this defense continues to struggle. They're having trouble getting people off the field. It's not just about third down stops. I don't know how you can successfully improve or recreate turnovers other than to continue to put yourself in position to do so. So, it's not like to come in here without solutions to some of these problems. Some of them I think you can find solutions to. Some of them are more luck-based than you would like for it to be. Interception, turnovers generally, and health are those 2 things that I think are as much predicated on luck as they are skill. Because they haven't even gotten anything close. Like there hasn't been that many moments where you see a tipped pass up in the air that's, a defensive back is just a few moments or a few seconds short on to get under it. They haven't had moments like that this year. You want to guess the third?
Is it
It's real easy.
lack of a consistent pass rush?
Red zone offense.
Oh, yeah, red zone offense.
You know where they rank?
Bottom 3.
31st.
Bottom 2.
Bottom 2. From best in the NFL from a period of 2019 through 2022 by percentage to 31st this season in the red zone. 24th overall in scoring. They had the 4 touchdowns against the Falcons. We know that to be an anomaly. The most points that a Titans team this season has scored in a loss is 5 losses. What's the most points they've scored in any of the 5 losses? I'll give you a hint. They've scored this exact total 3 times. 16.
Well, they've been in every game outside of
Cleveland.
the Cleveland game.
15, 3, 16, 16, and 16. 3 straight losses where they top out at 16 points. 3 field goals against the Steelers. They've got to find a way to capitalize in the red zone. They have not done so this year. It's harder, but this is a team that has made it look more routine. And all of a sudden, the inability to capitalize on red zone opportunities has just vanished. We knew that the percentage was going to go down based off last year. 70% is unsustainable. And you limit, or you at least make your percentage better by not having as many opportunities in the red zone because you don't get to the red zone very often. At least that was the case for them last year. They were still a top 5 red zone offense, even as the offense wasn't scoring.
You know the dead last team in red zone offense? We've talked about them today.
Raiders?
Jets.
Oh. Ew. That's the kind of company that you're keeping?
Listen to this.
Blech.
The Titans, so the Giants are 30th in red zone. First of all, the Cowboys are 29th.
The Cowboys can't run the ball.
They're converting in the red zone at a 43.75% clip. 30th, there's a drop-off to the New York Giants. They're converting at a 36% clip in the red zone. Titans converting at just under 35%. The New York Jets are converting less than 24% in the red zone. It goes from 34.62 with the Titans in second to last to 23.81% with the Jets.
So I take it back. You're not. Although among like normal NFL teams, you would
no,
be
you're
last.
in bad company. You're the New York Giants.
Yeah,
the New York Giants who are 2-7. That is your company.
Tommy DeVito at quarterback for the foreseeable future. Are there any of those 3 things that you feel that they can turn around at this point in the season? So I'll list them again for you. Struggles on the road, run defense, red zone offense. I am less inclined to pick red zone offense out of the 3. I don't think they've got whatever it is that they need to be successful down there. I don't think beyond Hopkins, they have a legitimate red zone threat. Hopkins doesn't even have that many red zone targets, to be honest with you. You know, I can't count on Chig. I can't count on Traylon Burks. I don't know that I can or can't count on Kyle Phillips, but if I don't know, then that means I can't yet. And I can't rely on Derrick Henry to do it all of the time, throwing touchdowns, running for touchdowns, wildcat touchdowns, all of the touchdowns. Like, Derrick can't be asked. I mean, he can, but you're going to have this level of failure and an offensive line that doesn't run block very well.
The lack of success on the road is interesting because can you pinpoint one thing that has let them down on the road? What's the biggest difference between their road and home performances?
I mean, honestly, the road performances are pretty similar. 15, 16, 16, 16 points. Like, that's where they're topping out at. The only anomaly is Cleveland in there.
Is that they faced the best front sevens that they faced all year have all been on the road? The Steelers and the Browns?
Steelers, Browns, Saints.
Saints, yeah.
Colts are not a bad defense, but they're not, like, a great defense.
I mean, Ravens are playing lights out right now.
Yeah, but that's a home game.
No, I don't count it.
Okay.
I don't count it. Like, do you?
No.
Like, we don't have to say road. We can say away from Nissan Stadium.
Okay.
But they're 0-5 away from Nissan Stadium.
That's correct. Yeah, Chargers aren't a good defense. Bengals have moments, but they've had personnel stuff this year. And then the Falcons were statistically a top 10 defense coming into Nashville. Once they lost Grady Jarrett, they lost any semblance of like a top line front seven player. And you saw the inability to, I mean, they were still getting actually to the quarterback, which says something about the Titans offensive line again. But like the best thing that Atlanta has defensively is their safeties. And
they just got torn up by Josh Dobbs, who had yet to take a practice rep with anybody on that Vikings
I love
offense.
that so much.
Me too, man. He has been one of the best stories in the NFL in the last 2 years. Like, I'm a Tennessee grad, and that could sound like homerism.
No, objectively.
But has he not?
Objectively.
As a guy who's been in this league since 2017, he had less career pass attempts than Malik Willis when he got here.
Which is crazy because Malik wasn't throwing the ball with any great volume. Dobbs, man.
I mean, he has bought himself an extra, 7 years of an NFL career?
Oh, no, he's going to chase Daniel this thing to the finish line.
100%.
Bert made a comparison to a backup quarterback the other day that I loved, and I can't remember who the comparison was. But when he said it, it was just like, oh, that's perfect. Like he's just going to continue through the next damn near decade of football to collect checks and be a viable Tyrod Taylor, basically. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is like 36. Tyrod's up there.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor.
Fitzpatrick is a good one.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater, you name it. Dobbs more of a dual threat than any of those guys as well.
Tyrod had moments.
Tyrod could run.
But
he didn't have
after the collapsed lung that the Chargers doctor gave him. I think he stopped. No, I don't know if that's what contributed to the less running, but yeah, Dobbs is very much in that mold, and it's funny because like those guys all had way more opportunities to play meaningful football earlier in their careers than did Dobbs.
He's got this Houdini-esque escapability that's just really fun to watch.
615-737-1045 is the number. Do we want to do the AFC South quarterback thing here, or do you want to do it later? Because I feel like it's a whole thing. I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be. We've got five and a half minutes, whatever. So of the 4 AFC South quarterbacks, what are the early returns on Twitter, @BuckRising? Which of the 4 would you want to have moving forward? Now, they're in different situations. Anthony Richardson is done for the year, obviously. I don't know that we know the least about Richardson. We've seen him play more than Levis, but his progress has obviously come to a screeching halt. Levis, we'll see how many more opportunities he gets beyond the 2 that he's had. The results have been promising. Nothing definitive yet about Will Levis. There's Trevor Lawrence, who is in his 3rd year and is really just starting to enter into the discussion of top flight NFL quarterbacks. He was on the Manning cast last night. Did you watch any of that?
I did. I caught pretty much all of Trevor's appearance on the Manning cast.
So the Jags are 6-2. You can make the argument for you could make the argument for the best team in the AFC if you want to. I think they'd probably be lower on the list than the Chiefs, just off the top of my head, but I don't know. I don't know that I would drop them much further than the second best team in the AFC thus far. Maybe the Ravens as the best team in the AFC. I'd probably argue for Baltimore, but still a
Jags,
top 3 team.
They're playing consistently right now.
A top 3 team right now in the conference.
They've got the Niners coming up next.
That's a tough one. Although
at home.
That in Jacksonville?
Yeah, noon kick on Sunday.
For a West Coast team, that's like a 9 a.m. kickoff.
Pretty sure the Niners coming off the bye. Both teams coming off the bye.
That's right. So we'll see if a healthier Brock Purdy can get them right. Their pass rush in San Francisco hasn't been as effective as of late. But which of those 4 quarterbacks, Lawrence, Stroud, who's off to a historic start, Levis, or Richardson, do you think has the most upside moving forward?
42%, the majority go with Lawrence. 32% are saying Stroud. 25% are saying Levis. Only 1% are saying Richardson.
I would take Stroud over Lawrence for only one reason. Because he's got 2 more years on a rookie quarterback contract and Trevor Lawrence is about to get paid. That's the only reason that I would say Stroud. And Stroud may end up being a better long-term quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. I have no idea how that's going to play out. But I know that by percentage, it is so much harder to win a championship with a quarterback on a second contract than it is with one on a rookie deal. It is the biggest advantage that an NFL team can have. So for that reason, I would take Stroud over Lawrence. I would go Lawrence 2. I don't think I could put Levis over Richardson without a bigger sample size.
How does this hit you? I was watching, every morning, my sort of routine, I'll throw on, usually Get Up, just while I'm making breakfast and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a segment with Dan Graziano of overreaction or not. The question was, C.J. Stroud, MVP candidate. He said, not an overreaction.
Not an overreaction.
After his near 500-yard performance, 5 touchdowns last Sunday.
As a candidate? Not an overreaction.
Candidate. Yeah.
Not an overreaction.
Not as Offensive Rookie of the Year, MVP.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud has completed 62% of his passes for 2,270 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
How many games did Texans win last year?
What was it, 3? 4?
3, because 1 at the end. They have already eclipsed their win total last year. He is the best quarterback that they have had since Deshaun Watson, and I think he is off to a better start than Deshaun Watson was as a rookie. His situation is not great around him. The offensive line group there is not good. C.J. Stroud reminds me of Joe Burrow. Just in terms of the accuracy, the ball placement, the way that he manages himself. Physically, I'm not doing comparisons. Athletically, I'm not doing comparisons. But just in terms of how that quarterback operates, Joe Burrow is the first player that comes to mind to me when I watch him. Who are the other MVP candidates? It has to be Mahomes, and it has to be Jalen Hurts.
Tua. Has to be Tua. I know they've fallen short in big
Tua
games.
Tua belongs in that discussion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I don't know that I would make – so is Stroud 4th on that list? The 2 best teams in their respective conferences, the Dolphins, who have a winning record but not beating the good teams, and the Texans, who don't stand to really compete this year, but are obviously, working with something legitimately special.
I think you're definitely putting Tua and Mahomes in front of C.J. Stroud right now in that discussion, if we're just looking at quarterbacks.
Tua in front of C.J. Stroud.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Tua's playing at a different level. It's not like last year where I think you could reasonably debate, all right, how much is he actually doing beyond what the system is asking him to do? Tua is Tua is growing with the system and with the coach that he's working with, which is the kind of thing that you want to see. The kind of thing that makes him a viable option as a former first overall pick, first round pick.
He's got the best numbers of any quarterback in the NFL. You can say what you want about the Dolphins in big games this year, but we're talking about the MVP award. I think, for me, Tua's got to be the favorite right now. I don't know what the sports
favorite
to win the MVP right now. Yes, I'll look it up right now on FanDuel Sportsbook. Who do you think it is?
Mahomes. I mean, I know the offense is struggling, but it's because they can't run the football. It's not because Pat's bad or Pat's struggling. Like they have the Chiefs lead the league in drops. I think I would be shocked if it wasn't Tua third on that list between Mahomes, Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa.
Try to find out.
Okay. Lucas will look that up for us. Last call for phone call, 615-737-1045. A quick Nashville SC preview and some polls next. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. Mike Vrabel's going to speak in 13 minutes. We're going to get out a little early so that Blaine and Mickey can get you into things before the head coach makes his way to the podium. Nashville SC tonight. Lucas on the call. You can hear it right here on 104.5 The Zone. Jaleel Anibaba will be his color commentator. Nashville SC and Orlando tonight in Geodis Park's first home playoff game.
Every time these two meet, it's tense. Something boils over. They do not like each other. And I think that'll make for a fun environment tonight at Geodis Park. It's win or go home. Game 2 in a best-of-3 series. Nashville fell in Game 1 in Orlando on October 30th, 1-0. Margins are very, very thin when these two meet. So typically it takes 1 to 2 moments to capitalize on. And after 90 minutes, if the game is still tied, it would go straight to penalty kicks. So Nashville, with a loss, would end its season. With a win, would force a Game 3, and on Sunday afternoon, play for a spot in the conference semifinal in Orlando. So we'll be on the air at 7:30 for pregame. 8 p.m. is the kickoff, and it's going to be fun. Just hardly anything to separate these two. But I know there's going to be an intensity about this game that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Well, you can hear said intensity, perhaps even delirium, on the call tonight on 104.5 The Zone. So the matchup, you like the matchup, though, for SC?
Absolutely. And look, Orlando finished as arguably the hottest team in Major League Soccer in the regular season. Nashville, after the Leagues Cup run, I think hit some fatigue, hit a bit of a lull, but their defensive pedigree will always allow them to be in games. And they're just looking for that sort of clinical edge in the final third, and Hani Mukhtar to reignite that spark tonight would certainly be a good time to do it. And last time Orlando was in Nashville for a playoff game, it was Nashville winning 3-1 at Nissan Stadium and moving on, and Hani Mukhtar scoring 2 goals. So see if they can replicate some of that tonight.
Polls, please.
Yeah.
The Buck Rising Show's almost done. Yeah. We have come to this portion of the program where we update the poll. Yeah.
Settle down, Beavis.
Go ahead, update them, Buck. Buck.
We're gonna score.
Hey, Buck.
Buck doesn't update the polls, dummy. You're stupid.
Yeah. Time for a poll update. Hey, how's it going, man?
You said poll.
Yeah. Lucas Panzica. Yeah, are you threatening me? I am the great Cornpolio.
Hey, Lucas, can you update the poll? Lucas, give us the deets, dog.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What in sports made you say, oh no, this weekend? Tyler says Kyler Murray's expected return on Sunday. New Call of Duty release date on Friday.
I love that.
That's pretty good. Kyler is apparently supposed to start on Sunday for the 1-win Arizona Cardinals.
Good luck.
What will Mike Vrabel say about the quarterback situation today? 38% say absolutely nothing. 27% say Vrabel will state that Tannehill starts if healthy. 26% believe Vrabel will name Levis the starter. 9% say 3-quarterback system.
30% of you are right. I personally am hoping for the 3-quarterback system.
Will Michigan / Jim Harbaugh see any sort of punishment before the end of the 2023 season? 79% are saying no.
I'm inclined to think no. I just don't think you can set a precedent of punishing before investigations are over. That doesn't seem like a functional way to operate, but the NCAA is barely a functional operation.
Which AFC South quarterback would you most like to have over the next 5 years? 42% say Trevor Lawrence, 32% say Stroud, 25% Levis, only 1% say Richardson. By the way, we were talking about MVP odds per FanDuel Sportsbook. Mahomes is the favorite at plus 240, Jalen Hurts the second, Lamar Jackson the third, and then Tua. So Hurts' passing numbers aren't great. Eagles are winning.
He's the best team in football.
Jackson is balling right now, though. Yeah. So Tua's got the best passing numbers in the NFL at this moment. It's actually a fun MVP race, though.
I don't hear a single person talking about running back Lamar Jackson anymore. Bunch of dopes.
Not at all.
Now they're playing like an elite quarterback.
Those are the polls. Reminder tonight, if you're watching on Apple TV between Nashville and Orlando, be sure to turn us on. You have the option to listen to the home radio broadcast.
Do you have any more plugs?
No.
Okay. That's the show.
Blaine and Mickey next.
Prime time later tonight. Enjoy your afternoon. You'll hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel in just 8 minutes from now. Hold on to your butts, kids.